All right, I think we will go ahead and get started. Caitlin, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Awesome. So presentation that we have for you all today, it is going to be really discussing peptide technology. So peptides are pretty much found in the whole entire, our full entire body, plants, animals are peptides that are going to be out there. However, peptides in the aesthetic industry is kind of what we consider as an intelligent ingredient technology. So, intelligent ingredient technology, it's much more than just like traditional botanicals that are out there as well. So for those of you who've worked with Circadia for quite a bit of time, I'm sure you guys are all familiar that we are science influenced or science based, but we also utilize the best of Mother Nature as well. So whenever you're looking at what's considered intelligent ingredients, also think of these as what are your active ingredients in a bottle or in a formulation. So whenever we look at a bottle or a formulation, typically we see at least 20 to 30 ingredients that are going to be listed on there. However, we have to identify and pull out of those ingredients what are considered to be those active ingredients. So let's say you have this magical serum or this miracle serum, and they say it is designed to boost collagen and elastin, increase cell turnover. Well, out of those 20 to 30 ingredients that are going to be in there, there's only a handful that are considered to be those active ingredients in there as well. So whenever you're looking at ingredients, kind of pay attention to what's considered like your peptides in there, your vitamins. Whenever you're thinking about vitamins, always you have to identify if you're working with an oil-soluble vitamin or also a water-soluble vitamin. And then also stem cell technology, and then those pure botanicals. So Circadia does utilize all of these as those active ingredients in our formulations on there. One thing to note as well is when we say unique stem cell technology, Circadia only utilizes a plant-derived stem cell. So we're not utilizing anything from any humans, any derived stem cells from humans or animals on there. But today, the whole entire presentation is going to be focused just around peptide technology. So before we really kind of discuss what a peptide is, we have to discuss where a peptide is going to be coming from. So what peptides are chains of amino acids that are kind of forming or coming together. So there's 20 amino acids that can be found in our entire body. So peptides are just chains of amino acids. So you just need two amino acids coming together, and that's what's going to form that dipeptide in there as well. So we can also utilize just amino acids separately by themselves in skincare. However, different amino acids coming together is now what's going to be a peptide bond. So amino acids also have a positive side to it and also a negative side. So think of these as almost like Legos. So Legos coming together is you have the positive portion of one amino acid that's going to connect itself to the negative portion of the other amino acids. So as these amino acids come together, that's what forms that peptide bond. You can also think, peptides are also, our amino acids are also kind of typically talked about as the building blocks of protein, collagen, elastin. So pretty much our whole entire body is made up of amino acids coming together to create different proteins in the skin. Okay, do you have anything to add on this one?
Yeah, so something interesting about just protein assembly in general, or amino acids coming together to create proteins, a lot of this happens during the repair function within your circadian rhythms. So the repair happens mainly in the evening, again, when you're not exposing your skin to ultraviolet radiation and other environmental toxins. So when these amino acids are coming together to create these proteins, it's called protein assembly. And during this process, you actually will see some water loss. It actually excretes water through this process. So between the hours of 9 and 11 at night, you have the most transepidermal water loss because of this amino acid assembly into different proteins and peptides. So just bringing it all back into the concept of circadian rhythms. And then something else that might hit home, especially within our industry, we all have done chemical peels. We all know how chemical peels are working. Protein assembly and peptides coming together is the opposite of what we're doing with a chemical peel. So when you are administering a chemical peel, you're actually denaturing those proteins or pulling them apart. So it's the opposite function of amino acids coming together, positive and negative, to make a peptide. A chemical peel is pulling apart the positive and negative and denaturing that protein. So if you can think about it in the sense of opposites, and that could be a good visual for you to see what this process is doing.
Yeah, and kind of add on to that. So, we do chemical peels in the industry. So if a chemical peel is denaturing amino acids or denaturing proteins and kind of separating those, it's all based on pH. So I know maybe we have a lot of mothers or a lot of parents who are on today, and now they are kind of teaching their kids because of the coronavirus. So, it's not safe to go to school quite yet. So you could even just do different experiments by just taking a raw egg, just crack a raw egg and kind of start to try to coagulate or pull apart the protein of that egg with the lower pH of different products. So this is typically an experiment that we do at different classes when we're doing in-person classes where we would utilize the different chemical peels that the Circadia offers, because we have a wide range of pH peels. So the lower the pH of a chemical peel, the more aggressive that it's going to be. When you're looking at the pH of a chemical peel, what is going to determine the strength of that chemical peel or the pH is freestanding hydrogen ions. The more freestanding hydrogen ions in an acid, the lower the pH. So with this egg, we would just do an experiment just so we can demonstrate how effective or how aggressive one of our chemical peels are. For example, we have something that's a Mandeli clear peel. So one layer of Mandeli clear, you do get some nice visible exfoliation. But comparing that with something like our Jesner peel, you can really identify the difference pretty much immediately just by applying some of that acid on an egg. But you can also do this experiment with not just chemical peels. Just find your pH scale, even if you have any of your Milady book or even just a quick Google search pH, and there's tons of just household items that are much lower in pH. And just kind of have your kids just do that experiment and just pull apart proteins on an egg or something like that as well. So then we pretty much talked about what peptides are. So we know amino acids, building blocks of our entire skin. A peptide bond is two or more amino acids that are coming together. However, the whole kind of world of kind of aesthetics and formulation, you will never have what's considered to be a trade name on the back of an ingredient profile. So sometimes we want to recognize how many amino acids have been came together to create that peptide bond. So that more than likely is always going to be in the name. So whenever you see something that says dipeptide, so it might have dipeptide and then another name to it as well. So if you have the word dipeptide, di is going to be 2, and then tripeptide is going to be 3 amino acids together. Pentapeptide is going to be 5. Octapeptide. However, when you get to something that's more than 10, you'll have something that says oligopeptide, and that word oligo just means many. So this is how you can recognize how many amino acids have been came together to create a peptide bond on there. So typically, the shorter chain of amino acids, it's a little bit easier to get delivered into the skin. The longer chain of amino acids, that's when you can see a different delivery system within the entire formulation, where there'd be like a liposomal delivery system, or it could potentially be formulated in a thinner consistency, like an ethanol type of base on there. So it's not that the bigger the peptide bond, the worse it is, or the better it is. It's just you may have to have a different type of delivery system. However, there's just different kind of dipeptides that you can find all over the place, or just amino acids. And we'll kind of talk about one of those here shortly. So myself personally, I am a visual learner. So I always have to kind of put it back in kind of a way where my mind can recognize it. So if you kind of take a look at these building blocks that you see here, so if there was 2 of these building blocks only connected together, think of that as your dipeptide. However, you got those 4 building blocks on here, so that's going to be that tetrapeptide on there. So when you start to recognize ingredient profiles, or you see the ingredients on the back of the label, start to kind of pull out something that says dipeptide, tripeptide on there also. All right, Katelyn, do you want to go through this amino acid structure?
Sure. So this is just, again, another visual of the positive portion of the hydrogen coming together with the negative portion of the hydrogen that's creating this, this particular peptide. And just to kind of add to what George just talked about, when we're looking at different peptide strands, whether it's a tetrapeptide or an oligopeptide, what we're looking at is a very specific sequence of amino acids. So we have to have a very specific sequence in order to create the outcome that we need. So we'll have a visual that comes a little bit later in the presentation, but unless you have this exact sequence of amino acids, it cannot unlock the receptor of the cell. So it's, think of it as kind of a lock and key. If you don't have the exact right structure, then it's not going to unlock the receptor. So when you're looking at this particular peptide, you're just looking at the positive coming together with the negative portion, and that's creating that peptide bond.
Awesome. All right, so kind of this is what a simple dipeptide looks like. So if you see alanine and histidine, those two amino acids coming together is what's going to create carnosine. So carnosine is typically a supplement that many people kind of take internally because it has anti-glycating properties, but it's also been shown to help with Alzheimer's as well. However, we do utilize this simple peptide or this dipeptide in our firming peptide mask as well. So as I mentioned a second ago, you can kind of think of it as like a sugar detox or detoxifying anti-glycation. So we added that into our firming peptide mask. So that is one of the kind of amino acid kind of peptides on there is the L-carnosine. We added in there for its anti-glycation properties. However, it's also an anti-aging ingredient, not that it really treats traditional aging. So whenever we look at an anti-aging clientele, there's different symptoms that we can suppress to start to repair the skin and see a reduction in those fine lines and wrinkles. So if you just kind of take a look at younger skin versus a mature skin, you can identify the difference between the two. A younger skin does have that fast cell turnover rate. Younger skin also has that increased cell turnover. Younger skin also has high fibroblast activity. So there's collagen, elastin, hyaluronic acid. So the skin is going to be plump. But however, one other thing that many people don't take in consideration is somebody that has glycated skin. So a glycated skin identifies almost identical to what an anti-aging skin identifies as. However, the really good way to identify if you're treating someone from glycation or someone that's just traditional anti-aging, kind of pay attention to the way that the wrinkles are forming. So your wrinkles always will form the opposite direction that your muscles contract. For example, if your forehead kind of pulls up, your wrinkles are going to form horizontally on there as well. So what glycation is, it's cross-linking of proteins and sugars. So glycation is also another skin condition that we do to ourselves. So it's not a skin type, it's a skin condition. And the way that we do it to ourselves is all based on the foods that we consume. Not really the foods we consume, but the way that we process these foods. So kind of, for example, if I just had like a chicken breast and I was to either boil it, steam it, minimal kind of damage is going to happen to my skin and my body. However, as soon as I take that same chicken breast and now I want to put it in like a sugary kind of marinade and then cook it over an open flame or an open grill, that type of heat is what creates that Maillard reaction where you really hear the actual protein kind of cooking. What's happening is you're cross-linking the proteins and sugars. So when you go to eat that, that's what causes some more of the damage on there. So glycated skin or even glycated organs, it's like stiffening of the organs. Even when you go to do your facial massage on a client, you feel the skin is really stiff. You can barely get it through your hands. And even like the skin tone is more a little yellowish, kind of grayish on there. So if you're treating an anti-aging client, that's not going to treat your traditional anti-aging ingredients, are not really going to treat the glycation. That's where you need to increase or add anti-glycation ingredients. So like L-carnosine is going to be one of them. Another kind of amino acid or peptide blend in here, it's L-carnitine. So L-carnitine is going to actually work on more of the anti-aging side of it. So L-carnitine is also another supplement that people take, especially people that work out quite a bit. So it does help to burn your fatty acids as energy and kind of converts it into ATP energy. So, people take that when they're kind of working out for increased energy production, but also to metabolize fat a little bit quicker as well. So if you guys have used this mask, definitely type it out in the chat section here and let us know. But it's definitely a great mask. It does have a love to hate relationship at first, but once you learn to work with it and utilize it, it's probably going to be your top mask to use. Katelyn, do you have anything else to add on dipeptides, carnitine?
No, I think we're good.
Yep. All right, so now that we kind of identified what a peptide is, so kind of just a refresh on there. So peptides are chains of amino acids. You can identify chains of amino acids, how large or small this peptide bond is based in the name. So dipeptide, for example, is going to be 2 amino acids. However, it's not more beneficial to have more amino acids, and it's not unbeneficial as well. However, now we have to identify the different families of peptides. So in the aesthetic industry, we're really talking about these peptide families in the case of skincare on here. So there's really 4 peptides or 4 families of chains of amino acids, why we would actually utilize them in skincare. So typically, the largest family of peptides that you'll typically see in the aesthetic industry are called signaling peptides or even communicating peptides. So let's kind of talk through this here in a second on there. Then we also have neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides. This family of peptides is typically when someone says this is Botox in a bottle, you know, something like that. However, it doesn't function like Botox whatsoever. And then enzyme modulating peptides, we'll discuss that. However, enzyme modulating peptides, they are not peptides that can be synthetically made. It's just something that naturally happens in nature. And then delivery peptides, we're not going to spend too much time on delivery peptides. They were extremely popular. Like copper peptide was the first peptide introduced to the aesthetic industry many, many years ago. Now there's different delivery systems, so you really don't see delivery peptides as much as marketing, because everybody knows that we do need something to deliver. So marketing wise, you typically see signaling peptides, neurotransmitter peptides are the 2 largest kind of families that you'll typically see. So signaling peptides, that's exactly what it sounds. It's a signaler, it's a communicator. Think of it as like a gossiper. So let's kind of think of the analogy, because you can utilize signaling peptides all over the aesthetic industry. They can treat antibacterial properties. They can also treat anti-aging. They can treat pigmentation. So we'll show you some of the key peptides and how they treat that. But let's kind of talk about signaling peptides and how they're really utilized to treat an anti-aging clientele. So if you kind of think of anti-aging clients, we really discussed a second ago on the different symptoms that we need to suppress to reduce the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles. So one of the symptoms that we do need to address is going to be a pretty much no fibroblast activity. So your fibroblast cell is going to be the skin cell that's responsible. Think of it as a factory. What this factory produces is that connective tissue, that collagen, elastin, fibronectin, hyaluronic acid. When we're younger, we have lots of fibroblast activity. As we start to age and mature, we no longer have that activity as we did when we were younger. So we have to do something to the skin to get it to produce that fibroblast activity again. So you can have peptides that are called like matrixyl 3000. Those type of peptides are going to be communicating peptides or signaling peptides. So I'm sure you all have heard of matrixyl 3000. So the way that these work, they send a signal. They're a gossiper. They send a message to that fibroblast cell. Kind of think of it on like a simpler kind of talking to consumer kind of level. And they pretty much tell the fibroblast cell you're damaged or you're wounded. So we do chemical peels in the aesthetic industry for a couple reasons. One of the benefits of a chemical peel is it's going to remove surface proteins. The other benefit is it creates a wound. That wound is now what's going to start to boost or signal the production of collagen and elastin. So we can utilize a communicating peptide like your matrixyls to boost collagen and elastin by pretty much telling the fibroblast cell you're wounded, you're damaged on there, but you're not creating that tissue damage like a traditional chemical peel. So ingredients like these matrixyls or these communicating peptides, they're amazing because you can apply them on the client's skin every single night. It's ideally to apply them onto the skin every single night on there as well. However, you can also have signaling peptides or communicating peptides that are designed to suppress melanocyte activity. So we also have a melanocyte. Melanocyte is going to be another factory that it produces is melanin. So if this, our body produces melanin when it feels like it's damaged or when it feels like it needs to protect itself. So we can use a signaling peptide to pretty much communicate with the melanocyte and say you're not damaged, you're not wounded on there also. So here's a little kind of, once again, we're visual learners, myself and Katelyn, so we'll have her kind of describe exactly how this is working.
Sure. So just to kind of expand on what George was talking about as far as pigmentation and triggering the melanocyte, if you were to go outside right now without any sun protection on, your surface keratinocytes will start to radiate with that UV exposure. It's going to release a hormone that is going to be the key that unlocks the melanocyte and starts that factory. So if you have a peptide that peptide has to sit in the receptor of the cell and either turn on, like we are talking about collagen and elastin, or turn off, like George was just talking about with the melanocyte, that cell's activity. But the peptide, again, think of it as the key that's turning on or turning off the receptor in the cell.
Perfect. All right, so let's kind of talk about a little bit of the traditional trade of peptides that you typically see out there. So we did talk about the matrixyls earlier. We do have Ilis, there's Hyloxal. So Ilis is actually going to remove fluid buildup. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the product knowledge portion. Hyloxal is also in the full circle eye repair. So Hyloxal is another vasoconstrictor, so it can actually decrease blood flow to the under eye area. As we decrease blood flow and it strengthens the capillaries, that's when you're also going to see a reduction of the dark circles. Telangian is another vasoconstrictor. So telangian is typically utilized for more of your sensitive rosacea or even redness prone skin. So we do have like that peptide in our Chronocom. Also, we have like Dipeptide peptide. So Dipeptide peptide, it's in a couple of our hydrating products. However, the Dipeptide peptide, what it really works on is your Aquaporin channels. So our Aquaporin channels, think of these as like highways of hydration throughout our keratinocytes. So typically what stimulates those Aquaporin channels to promote hydration to the upper layers of the skin are called Aquaporin proteins. So this does have the ability to communicate with your Aquaporin proteins as well as the Aquaporin channels to help to regulate internal hydration on there. It's amazing peptide for more of your high altitude clienteles or even someone that is working out quite a bit. Every time someone is working out quite a bit and they are drinking a lot of water, they also have more transepidermal water loss just from moisture secretion from sweating. You can also utilize peptides like melanostatin 5. Melanostatin 5, it's a pigmentation. It's utilized to treat abnormal discoloration. The way that this kind of really works, it's an alpha MSH inhibitor. So alpha MSH stands for alpha melanin stimulating hormone. So this is great because it's a protective way to treat pigmented clients, but it's also great because it can be paired with ingredients like licorice root extract, which is a tyrosinase inhibitor. So whenever you're kind of looking at kind of full formulation, you know, there's really different ways to target a skin condition, not really just one way. So kind of think of the Circadia product line as it's multiple tools in one formulation. So with the kind of Michael Pugliese and also Dr. Pugliese, you know, with their formulary expertise, they really know how to formulate a product to really hit it with different tools within one formulation on there. You want to take a neurotransmitter inhibitor peptide? So I'll tell you there. So myself and Katelyn, we have two different teaching styles. So every time she will go and teach and she uses, like, she just knows how to talk about the products and talk about the ingredients at an amazing level. Come in and I try to retell myself exactly what she just said.
George and I have been teaching together for like 5 years. So it's usually when one of us is on, the other is off. So we usually a really good team. But I'm just coming back from maternity and I kind of am trying to get my legs back as far as talking to adults. So just bear with me. But when we're talking about neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides, these are peptides that are going to work similar to Botox. There's so many companies out there that talk about, you know, Botox in a bottle, and this is going to be a miracle wrinkle inhibitor. And it's not working the same way as Botox. Botox is temporarily paralyzing the muscle. It's basically not allowing, or it's cleaving that acetyl-CoA from coming together, and it's temporarily paralyzing what the muscle can do. With your neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides, the acetyl-CoA comes together, but the peptide is going to compete for space in the neural crest, or you know, on the presynapse portion of the cell. So a better way to communicate this is that it's going to inhibit the message from being received by the muscle to make that contraction happen. So if we're putting this into an analogy, if you are sitting here and we're having a face-to-face conversation, which we can't wait to have once we can get past some of this COVID stuff, and I was talking to you face-to-face and I told you to make a muscle movement, like to raise your hand. what a neurotransmitter inhibiting peptide is going to do is it's going to be like me putting my hand over my mouth. And now my message to you to make that muscle movement happen is now inhibited. We also have neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides that are working on the postsynapse. So it's working on the receiving side of the message. So that's like you putting your hands over your ears when I'm asking you to make that muscle movement happen. So now we have this, this issue with the communication on the pre and the post-synapse side, and that's how it's working similar to Botox. But it is a peptide that has to be applied multiple times, and once you stop applying it, then your muscle is going to continue to fire as it should. So they are fantastic peptides to be using, but they do have to be used continually in order to see the best results.
Yeah, so that kind of brings a really good point. That's just kind of skincare in general. So I know we have a lot of clients that they will get really, they'll follow their regimen for at least, 2-3 days. And then all of a sudden they just stop. And now they come back to us and they're just like, your products didn't work, or this is not working. So same thing with kind of working out. I've gained the COVID 40 now that I've been working from home. So I started working out. If I don't do this every day or eat properly every single day, nothing is going to come off. This COVID 40 is not going to turn into a COVID 20. However, same thing with skincare. If our clients are not utilizing these as recommended, so typically these type of products or ingredients, they need to be applied daily to see the result. And it also is going to be not only have to take in consideration their usage, but also their cell turnover cycle. The more mature a client that we have, the longer it is going to take to see results, whether we're treating pigmentation, anti-aging. So that's why putting more of a mature clientele on those cell proliferators completely help with that as well. So these neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides, they're not like Botox, but you'll hear very many people talk and say Botox-like effect. So, kind of think of these as more of a preventative way that we are treating anti-aging clienteles. So same thing with Botox and fillers. So Botox is you only get Botox to prevent fine lines and wrinkles. If you have a fine line and wrinkle that's there, Botox is going to do nothing really to it other than make it from getting worse. That's when we have fillers that kind of come into play. Another way that you can kind of think about kind of these communicating peptides and these neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides, think of them as corrective, think of them as preventative. So a lot of the times we like to combine these products together. If we can suppress muscle contraction, prevent it from getting worse, but at the same time stimulate collagen and elastin, that's when you're going to see a huge reduction in that fine lines and wrinkles. So if you're going to think about neurotransmitter inhibitors as your Botox-like peptides, think of your signaling communicating matrixyl peptides as your fillers on there. So corrective, preventative on it. So kind of some industry, there's many more than these ones as well. So kind of common neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides, we do have the arginine. You'll find that in our full circle eye repair, SNAP8, inulin. These peptides are typically only applied where you traditionally get Botox on the face. So you don't really want to apply these ingredients where you need muscle contraction. So typically like those 11s, full forehead, crow's feet, nasal labial folds, even underneath the eye is perfectly fine. It's just you don't want to apply these on the actual eyelid. So, just places like that. Of course, we need to open our eyes, kind of close our eyes. So we really, that's not where you apply them. You just apply them just areas where you don't need muscle contraction, where someone would typically get Botox. A lot of the Circadia Medi Spas will utilize one of our products that's called Myosite Plus in conjunction with Botox, because it does have the potential to extend the life of Botox, especially if you have a younger skin that metabolizes it a little bit quicker. So these are just kind of an example of some of the peptides that we do have in some of the products, but I wanted to kind of show you before we get to the next one, what is like a great resource, not just for the Circadia line, but also a great resource for just peptides in general. If you were just to go to circadia.com and you actually just click on the science and then you go to the ingredients, when you click on the ingredients, it's going to come out when you go down to the bottom. You'll see when you click on botanicals, it pulls up all of our botanicals that we utilize, stem cells, all of our stem cells. So for example, Peptide Technology, when I click on this, we have all of our peptides based in different categories, whether we need an anti-aging repair category, hydrating, pigmentation. So definitely recommend to utilize this resource. And it's just on the Circadia website under the science and then under ingredients as well. And, these ingredients, they're not just specific. Circadia does not own just 100% of the rights to these ingredients. Many professional skincare lines that you see at trade shows, they utilize these same ingredients as well. So if you have these just listed out and kind of print it, kind of keep it in your treatment room cabinet as well, you'll just have kind of little nuggets and little bullet points to kind of really talk about these different peptides. And then also just start to you could even just make your kids start telling you how many amino acids came to create that tripeptide, and those also. All right, so kind of the last family of peptides that we are going to discuss today are called enzyme modulating peptides. So this one is earlier we discussed and said enzyme modulating peptides are not peptides that are made synthetically outside of nature. It's just something that naturally happens. So the best way for myself to kind of really explain this, let's kind of talk about that aging skin again. So we talked about anti-aging clients, and we talked about how there's low cell turnover rate, there's no collagen and elastin production. However, our body also produces two enzymes that break down our collagen and elastin. Those two enzymes are called collagenase and elastase. So if you ever see like keloid scarring is typically an overproduction of collagen and elastin, and there's not that healthy blend between of collagenase elastase to collagen and elastin production on there. So as we start to age and as we start to mature, there's even scientific studies out there that say after the age of 36 is where we start to see a lot of that damage that we incurred when we were younger. So I have at least 2 more months before you guys see me turn into 60 overnight, I think. However, so kind of think of this. So there's different emollients, there's different botanicals, different oils that are at. So Circadia utilizes, it's a GMO-free soybean oil vitamin veil cleanser. Utilize it in our Hydrolox product. So this is kind of a dual functioning type of ingredient. One, it is that emollient. So it is going to sit at the surface of the skin, slow down moisture loss. However, when this soybean oil, this GMO-free soybean oil or rice bran oil, whenever you heat them up to a certain degree, they produce their own internal enzyme modulating peptides. These internal enzyme modulating peptides that they're producing, they will decrease collagenase and elastase. So we typically recommend our vitamin veil cleanser for post-chemical peel, post-laser, even someone that is going to be a compromised skin. So whenever we're doing these aggressive type of treatments, like chemical peels, microdermabrasion, they're designed to be multifunctioning. One, they're designed to remove surface protein, but they're also designed to boost collagen and elastin by telling the skin it's wounded, it's damaged. So yes, what's going to be accompanying that damage and that wound is collagen and elastin, but you're also increasing collagenase and elastase. So enzyme modulating peptides that are coming from like rice bran oil, a GMO-free soybean oil, that is what's going to decrease the collagenase and elastase. So, whenever we are putting the skin in kind of a wound repair mode, we're also creating a mild fire. So you will notice with the Circadia range or the Circadia line, we address even the byproduct of what is happening to the skin. That way you get the benefits, but you don't get the negative effects. So for example, like our switch, we know that whenever we're increasing ATP energy, we know that we're also going to be producing an internal free radical called superoxide. So that's why there is home care products that are designed to decrease internal free radical damage. Or also with our oxygen treatment. We do know oxygen is very beneficial to a client's skin. However, we do know oxygen can potentially cause oxidative stress at a certain point that oxygen is onto the skin. So that's why we have you neutralize it out before you move on to the next step. So just kind of understanding like the full kind of concept of the way that the body, the skin, everything is working, we are able to address the symptom, but not cause any type of damage. So enzyme modulating peptides are great because they can decrease collagenase and elastase. Majority of them come from botanical extracts or sources. The ones that Circadia typically utilizes is emollient based, like our GMO-free soybean oil. Katelyn, anything on this?
Nope, I think we're good.
All right, so now we kind of want to spend the last part of this presentation just identifying some key product knowledge as far as how we utilize the peptides. I feel like we covered quite a bit of these a second ago. Katelyn, do you want to start off with Full Circle Eye and Full Circle Day?
So Full Circle Eye Repair, it's a great product because it has kind of a built-in GWP. You get 2 formulations in one package, and this follows along with our concept of circadian rhythms. So you've got your daytime formulation, and then you've got your nighttime formulation. So the hydroxyl is the peptide that George had mentioned when we were going through different peptides. And what I love about hydroxyl is it is going to not only strengthen the capillaries to make them less permeable, so you have preventative measures of reducing the dark circles, but it can also start to metabolize some of that coagulated blood that pools underneath the eye. So you can get the dark circles that have already happened, you can start to lighten those. And then to get that instant gratification, we do have light refracting ingredients in here. So you are going to lessen the darkness just to the visible eye. And then on top of that, we have our gyroline. So our gyroline is the very first
Neurotransmitter inhibitor.
Thanks. I think of words today. It was the very first neurotransmitter inhibiting peptide that launched, and they've obviously improved on the technology as the years have progressed, but this is going to, again, inhibit the message from being received by the muscle to contract. So we have most muscle contraction during the daytime because we're talking, we're expressive with our eyes, versus when we're sleeping at night. So having something that's going to help to prevent some of that muscle movement during the daytime is key in the daytime formulation.
And then we have the nighttime formulation that also is kind of comes in the box. So you get two products in the one box, but Full Circle Eye Repair is exactly like it sounds. It is a full circle repair product that's going to address all aspects of the under eye tissue. So typically what is associated with the under eye tissue is the puffiness, fine lines and wrinkles, thinniness of the skin in there, and also that muscle contraction. So Katelyn just kind of described how the day formula is going to address the muscle contraction. It's going to address the dark circles, but then there's also antioxidants that will be in there to really protect the skin from oxidative damage, free radicals, stress out there. So then the nighttime repair, as Katelyn had just mentioned as well, how at night is where we want to utilize more of your topical vitamin A, your matrixyl. So you will notice every time where we incorporate a matrixyl product, which is that communicating peptide that does increase collagen and stimulates fibroblast activity, we like to pair that with retinol or a vitamin A. So the vitamin A that's in this formula, that is what's going to increase cell turnover. And then vitamin A also helps to thicken the skin as far as like that dermal epidermal junction sits. So if you ever look at kind of like a punch biopsy of the skin, or if you look at one like a cartoon image of the skin and you see these high peaks and valleys on there, you know that's a younger skin. If you see those high peaks and valleys start to flatten out, that's more of a mature skin. So retinol or vitamin A, because it is a cell proliferator, it helps to maintain high peaks and valleys. So as the skin is starting to thin underneath the eye tissue, that's when you start to see those fine lines and wrinkles, the dryness in there. And then the eyelets that we have in here helps to remove lymph and fluid buildup as well. So the Full Circle Eye Repair, it's going to address all aspects of under eye tissue. You get the two products that come in one box. What's kind of great about these products as well, you know, typically other lines that I have worked with in the past, it's always like you have one product that does one thing. So by time you kind of addressed every symptom on your client, they're taking home like 10 products. Whereas with this, they just need the one product because it comes with two products in one box. Then we have kind of bring us to another vitamin A. So we have our Nighttime Repair Plus. So we do have Nighttime Repair and Nighttime Repair Plus. So these are power-packed repair anti-aging products. So this one does have a newer generation of the matrixyl, but it also has the retinol that's going to be in here as well. But you'll also notice like our Nighttime Repair Plus or any of our nighttime anti-aging products, we also sprinkle anti-glycation ingredients in here as well. So I know we talked earlier how we really have just two specifically that we market for glycation. However, this one does have phytocert in here. So phytocert will also prevent glycation. We do know glycation is a symptom or it does identify as traditional aging. So we'll add that to here as well. Another thing that's kind of unique about all of our Circadia products, you know, for the last 20, 30 years, the way we've been trained to treat skin is by creating damage. As we create damage, we create trauma. As we create trauma, we cross our fingers and we hope for the best. However, you'll notice with our whole entire range of products, you know, yes, we do utilize the retinol that can kind of put the skin in that wound repair mode. However, we also add ingredients to, you know, our whole goal is to get healthy skin. So there's also ingredients in here like an oil-soluble form of vitamin C. So it's called tetrahexadecyl ascorbate, or you'll typically see that as BVOSC. So earlier we talked about full formulation. So yes, we're utilizing repair ingredients, but at the same time, we're protecting the skin from oil-soluble free radical damage. And then also we have the vitamin C that's going to help to address pigmentation. So whenever we're thinking about treating an anti-aging clientele, you know, we always will treat anti-aging by addressing pigmentation as well. A lot of the times when our clients look in the mirror and they do see that they have fine lines and wrinkles, you know, their biggest thing that they're seeing is discoloration as well. So if you have the discoloration in the mirror, that can also identify the fine lines and wrinkles. So kind of think of this as like a highlight and a contour as well. So we put a contour on to minimize the area. So same thing with darkness on our eye. It looks like it's going to minimize, but if you have the bright, like a highlight around it, it's really going to stand out. So just having ingredients that are designed to also treat pigmentation, it's also going to address the anti-aging. So you'll typically see the Circadia anti-aging products. We like to do protocols that combine your pigmentation products and vice versa. For example, you know, if you do have a client that you're treating for pigmentation and they're more mature and they have an extremely slow cell turnover cycle, it may take at least 2 to 3 cell turnover cycles for this client to see a difference. So that's probably a 60-day, you know, 70 days that before you even see a difference in a client's skin. However, if you just incorporate something that's a cell proliferator like vitamin A or retinol, then they're going to see that difference much quicker. That's also the other reason why a home care goes hand in hand with treatments. I always recommend to save all of your exfoliation for the treatment room and make sure they're utilizing their home care on a nightly basis. So they're gonna get the biggest difference, the biggest results from retail. However, you're just gonna increase the results that they're getting with your in-room treatments. Katelyn, you wanna go to Myosite?
Sure. So Myosite has the highest price point for any products that you can get with Circadia. It retails for $150 for a half-ounce size, but this bottle should truly last you at least 6 months because this is designed to be a spot treat only. So again, as George had mentioned in the previous slides, this is only going to be applied to areas of expression or areas that you would typically inject Botox. So you have the best of both worlds when you're looking at the compilation of peptides. You've got 2 different matrixyls. We have matrixyl and matrixyl 3000, and you have both of them in here at 10%. So right there is just a 20% peptides that are going to fill the wrinkle from the inside. So your matrixyl family is going to stimulate collagen, elastin, fibronectin, and laminin 5. And they have clinicals behind them that are going to basically decrease the depth of the wrinkle anywhere between 31 to 100% over a 2-month period. So they have amazing results behind them. And that's what's going to, again, fill the wrinkle from the inside. Then when you partner that with SNAP8 and Aniline, these are those neurotransmitter inhibiting peptides. So SNAP8 is working on the pre-synapse, Aniline is working on the post-synapse. So you're having 2 different areas where the message is being received. And so it's going to limit the muscle contraction. Ideally, this product should be applied both AM and PM to start. And then once you start to see the results, then you can start to go down to 1 time a day, whether it's AM or PM. Usually we suggest PM just because you can get it onto the skin more times in a week. At least I can. I have a much easier time doing my nighttime routine than I do my daytime. And then on top of that, we have L-carnosine, which is just an essential amino acid for glycation, but also has a lot of other properties like L-lysine, L-glycine, and L-proline. Those 3 amino acids are also part of this formulation. And then we have the passion flower extract, and this is going to also be more of a botanical muscle relaxant versus a peptide muscle relaxant. So this is, again, a powerhouse formulation. It won Best Peptide Formulation a few years ago in Dermoscope magazine, and you can get onto our educational forum and just look up Myosite Plus, and you have so many people who have had such great success with this product. As George mentioned, those who metabolize Botox quickly or those who are a little bit weary of botulism toxin being injected into the body, it's a great alternative, and it also can extend the life of Botox if that is the path that you chose.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to add, so Katelyn did talk about the percentages of these kind of peptides that are in there. So peptides are really important to kind of pay attention to as far as percentage goes. So the FDA doesn't regulate ingredients other than what they consider as a drug. So like your sunscreens are a drug, hand sanitizer is a drug, benzoyl peroxide is a drug. So pretty much everything outside of what's considered a drug by the FDA, it's like the wild, wild west. So there are many product manufacturers that do know there is a lot of selling marketing for Matrixyl, Matrixyl 3000, Snap 8. So these different peptides on here, their clinical studies and to figure out how effective they are, were at a certain percentage under a certain amount of time. However, these ingredients are pretty pricey to formulate with. So since the FDA doesn't regulate percentage and you can just have false claims all over the place, typically it's a lot of false marketing that's on the front of the bottle. You know, you'll have a company that's saying this is a Matrixyl product. However, that Matrixyl that's in there may be at an extremely low percentage just to get it on there for marketing and on the label. So all of these these ingredients, they were studied at a certain level. You know, they're only beneficial at their in this percentage for this amount of time. So Michael Pugliese has so much integrity when he formulates a product that we always put an active ingredient like these peptides at the full recommended dosage to get the results over that certain period of time on there. So if you do have a client that's coming to you and saying, I'm already utilizing a communicating peptide from A, B, or C from somewhere else, it will be completely different from a communicating peptide that you're utilizing from the Circadia line, because you have to pay attention to that percentage. A lot of the times, if you do ask your product manufacturer, can you tell me the percentage of your Matrixyl? They will say it's a proprietary blend. So there's a couple reasons why they'll say proprietary. It's either they don't know and they're getting their product from somewhere else, or it's because they know that it's at such a low percent and they know you did your homework and you studied and you know it has to be at this certain percentage to get those results or to make a difference into the skin. So with Circadia, anytime you had a question on what one of these ingredients look like as far as that, you can always just shoot an email to info@circadia.com. And we typically like to have full disclosure on the actual percentage of those active ingredients. So that's another way that we stand apart from some other product manufacturers out there, is we love to have full disclosure. It's almost a selling tip, is we know that we have these ingredients in here to get a difference on the skin, not for marketing as well. Or you can always identify the percentage of the ingredient on that back of that ingredient profile. So ingredients on the back of the profile will start with your most, how much of the most percentage. So typically like water or some type of fruit juice. And then if you see something like the Matrixyl family is the second to last ingredient after the preservative, you know it's minimal benefits. Or if you see it middle to the top, you'll know it's a little bit more active compared to another product out there. So the next kind of couple slides we have to, we only have 3 more. It looks like we are running out of time today, but I wanted to kind of discuss how peptides are not utilized just in anti-aging. So we did talk about the Aquaporin hydrating cream, how this utilizes kind of 3 different ways that it hydrates the skin. So one of the ways is that Dipeptide peptide that does help to promote inner hydration by working on your Aquaporin channels. However, this does have a blend of emollients that help to slow down moisture loss. So whenever we need to hydrate a client's skin, we have to do a few different things, or there's a few things that we can do. We can promote inner hydration. We can also slow down moisture loss, or we can incorporate ingredients like humectants. So like glycerin, hyaluronic acid, that does help to bind environmental moisture. So you'll probably notice how this Dipeptide is going to work with the other ingredients. So you're pulling moisture up, you're pulling moisture in, and then you're trapping it in with those emollients as well. And then the next one was Chronocom. So this is that peptide that Katelyn had talked about that's going to be in here, which is the telangian peptide. So you typically find this product in our sensitive range, or even in our kind of someone that's rosacea. So what the Chronocom is designed to do, or what this whole entire category of products are designed to do, is decrease facial redness, decrease inflammation, decrease discomfort, and then help to repair a compromised barrier. So this truly is a nice blend of eco-certified extracts. So like marshmallow root extract or ginger root extract. If you ever had to go to like a naturopathic doctor for a lot of like stomach inflammation, they're gonna have you drink like marshmallow root, ginger root tea, because it is a powerful anti-inflammatory. So that combined with the telangian peptide, telangian peptide is that vasoconstrictor and strengthener. So we utilize vasoconstrictors and kind of dilators in the aesthetic industry, not just ingredient technology. It's always hot and cold. For example, if I was to put a hot towel over my client's face, the capillaries are going to dilate, increase blood flow, and the skin is going to look red. However, if I wanted to calm the skin down, I could utilize cold. So cold is going to do the opposite. So think of the telangian peptide as an ingredient that is going to decrease facial redness by strengthening, constricting those capillaries on there. So this is truly kind of really identifies what Circadia looks like in general. We are science and nature in perfect rhythm. We do utilize those eco-certified botanicals, but we combine it with a lot of science-based technology as well. Then you can also utilize peptide technology in pigmentation. So you notice there's quite a bit of different peptides that will be in here, but also combined with like niacinamide, vitamin C on here. So we talked about Be White, and we talked about communicating peptides a little bit earlier on there, and its ability to pretty much tell your melanocyte you're not damaged, suppress that melanocyte production, and you'll see a decrease in the dark spots. You have anything to add on any of this, Katelyn?
Just one quick thing to add before we jump off on the Chronocom. The Chronocom can also be a fantastic addition to your acne regimen for home care, especially if you're dealing with somebody with really inflamed acne. So for us, it can be that missing link when you're treating a higher grade acne that is displaying significant inflammation. We usually like to start with the Chronocom and then get your way into more of your aggressive ingredients like your BPOs, but it can really be a universal product in that sense. And just to add to that, we feel like there's an underlying inflammatory issue with all skin conditions. So if you get somebody on the Chronocom as a starter serum, along with your anti-aging, your pigmentation, acne, or rosacea products, it can be a really good building block for your other products that you're going to be adding into their regimen later.
So if you guys liked this webinar today, we have many of our other webinars that are pre-recorded. So if you just go to the Circadia website and you type in the URL, so circadia.com, and it's /replay. So on the Circadia replay landing page of the Circadia website, you will be able to download this presentation probably by end of day tomorrow. You'll be able to rewatch this presentation, but you also have access to many, many webinars that we have filmed in the last probably 6 months to a year.